Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the YouTube channel known as Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. I thought I would make a video today as sort of an epilogue to the Kenmore 158.1941 sewing machine that some of you may remember if you haven't forgotten. I took and thought I would restore it like I do all my others, only to find out that it had been someone had inserted grease into almost every imaginable space in that machine, and unfortunately that grease had gotten hard, and I made many attempts to remove it. But as I mentioned in the video that was last made, you cannot save them all, but what you can do is help other machines by getting parts for them. So again, the Kenmore, this particular Kenmore model is not rare. Sears was a massive retailer once upon a time, and they had huge sections of their stores were dedicated to sewing. So I wanted to kind of just show you what remained, right? What are the remains of this machine that will not go to waste? Don't forget, many times, although you can sometimes get reproduction parts for some things, there are many parts to vintage sewing machines that you've got to find original vintage parts, and they're not always easy to find. Finding Kenmore parts is a little easier than some more obscure makes. But, as much as you all know that I love this series of machines that were under the Kenmore brand in the 1970s, mid-70s, I just thought I would show you some of the parts that were left. Now, I didn't have this out when I was doing my attempts at saving the machine. This was not the problem. This is the lower tray that goes underneath the machine. This one is made of plastic, and I had to be extra careful with it when I removed it, and I've shown that in videos before because I believe the little door here that closes hides away the bobbin case. It's aluminum, but the rest of this tray is plastic, and you can see some of the old grease that it had actually dripped down into the tray. And they had made these trays of aluminum before, but of course late they switched to plastic, and that's fine. The bottom tray is mostly there to catch filth, dust, and grease and oil. Or shouldn't be catching grease, because you shouldn't put grease in your sewing machine. Anyway, you can see some of the original screws that I have that held this tray in place. I had a Kenmore tension assembly from another machine, or actually I think I had gotten an extra. I don't even know where this came from, but this I already had. But as you can see, I like to keep parts. The old expression, waste not, want not, is really important here, because there are times when I could not get a vintage part, or I couldn't find it, or I didn't want to give $100 for it, but I had it in my own little stash. So I thought that would be a useful thing to show you all. So what I did was what I mentioned in the last video I was going to do. I took the parts, and every single part doesn't have its own bag, but I took these I had some Ziploc freezer bags on hand. You can use whatever you like. I like them. If they're clear, it's easy to immediately see what's in there. And of course, I took a Sharpie. These bags have a little area that will let you write on them. Most plastic doesn't take ink well, but all of you, and if you've ever used a freezer bag, you know what I'm talking about. So in this one, I say I've got the machine and the model number there, and it says tension assembly. Feed dogs, needle bar, hardware, presser bar, hardware, belts, side panel, excuse me. And this is not always an exhaustive list, but it's a general list that tells me kind of the area of the machine where the parts go. And most importantly, of course, I have things that are associated with the machine. I've got the belts, of course, and any screws. Remember that different screws go in different locations in a machine, so if you're ever going to salvage parts, make sure you mark which is which. If you don't, yeah, you can try to figure it out, but it's going to be a bit of a chore to figure out which screw goes where. The screws come in different lengths. You've seen that when you've seen me take things apart. Okay, over here, what do I have? I did the same thing. I made the same notation of the machine. and I put motor, switch, or motor. I've got the motor, I've got the motor switch, the light switch, and I have attachment screws, right? So I know what's in here generally. I also have the light socket. Again, I couldn't fit everything on that label, but with the clear bag, you know, I can look at it very quickly and tell, because I've worked on these machines quite a long time. Notice what this says. It says extension release and lower chassis screws. This is actually the little spring-held device, along with this little plastic plunger. The plastic piece is what you see at the very top on the free arm extension that you push down to release the free arm. And I saved all of this just in case I come across a machine that, let's say it was abused or it's missing. You never know what can happen to a sewing machine over its life. And I have an extra now, right? I didn't have one of these before. And then this bag right here, it says, again, of course, obviously you see this, it just says hand wheel assembly, right? Now, I could have also written, I also have the pulley. Anything in the right side of the machine, I've got the hand wheel assembly. I've also got the pulley bracket, and the bolts that attach the pulley. And again, maybe I find a machine like this in the future, and I go to take the, maybe I need to take apart the hand wheel assembly, because remember the clutch engagement on this machine is quite different, and there are bearings. When I took it apart, some of the bearings fell out. I had to grab them, these beautiful ball bearings. So again, you never know what you're going to need when you're restoring sewing machines. So I wanted all of you to see how I catalog things. I have been revising my storage of parts and sort of combining boxes and trying to be more efficient in how I do it. But basically, I know where everything is. You will have your own system of storage. Last but not least is the top. Yes, you will sometimes see sewing machines for sale and the top is missing. So now I have a top. I have hopefully a potentially working bobbin winder mechanism over here. But again, you know, I could go and purchase these if I needed them, but I don't, because now I have them. So again, it's very important if you restore sewing machines or restore anything that you have the ability to have parts when you can, right? And, you know, if I'm in a club or I have to go online to join others, I can always trade, you know, barter or sell parts that people need. I've never done that because I've never had enough parts to justify an entire website, right? And that's quite a project. And I enjoy working on the machines quite a bit. So anyway, I wanted all of you to see that, as I mentioned in the last video, the loss of this Kenmore in terms of being able to make it sew again is not a complete loss, because there are other Kenmore multi-stitch machines out there that if you can't find a part and they need the part, they might as well be recycled too, because if you can't use it, what good is it, right? And so I've learned this in my own prior searches for parts, that there are people who will take machines and they will disassemble them and put them into various parts and literally list every single part, every little nut and bolt online. If you're ever looking for parts, again, I've mentioned this site many times, bonanza.com. And you can also look on Etsy and eBay as well. I typically find vintage sewing machine parts in these areas, and there are other websites that you can do. You can do Google searches and start searching for parts. But because this is a hobby that I enjoy, and because I specifically love this particular machine for a multi-stitcher, one of my favorite multi-stitch machines ever built, as far as I'm concerned. And you all know that I put this machine right up there with Bernina's. And in many ways, I like it better than a Bernina because it's a lot simpler to work on and somewhat easier to get parts for. And now, well, I've got quite a few parts for one, at least for this model. By the way, if you're wondering, I put the model on here to help me remember the machine that I've taken these off of for the future. Remember, many sewing machine brands, and the Kenmore that Sears sold was like this. They had many variations of models. Now, what you'll find is in machines that look sort of like this from the same era that Sears sold. Remember, they would offer lots of different options for the customer because they had different price points, and you never wanted the customer to walk out the door and say, I can't afford anything here. And so some of these parts, depending on the model, they will work on other models of Kenmores from this era. Not all of them, right? But the motor is a 1.2 amp, electric motor that the Kenmores use. They're wonderful motors. So again, things like the belts. So I will be able to use these not only on this specific model, but maybe on a 158.1931, and there are others that we could go through and list. I don't have all that list in my head at the moment, but there are many models where the parts are redundant. Some of the parts are unique and special to each model, but something like a switch in the mid-70s, it should fit many, not all, but many of those Kenmore machines. So I wanted you all to see that this truly is a silver lining, right? You can't always restore every machine, but at least you can take the precious parts that are valuable, so valuable, and use them to save other machines and keep them going. In fact, that's how a lot of restoration is done. This is not only true of sewing machines, it's true of everything from other small electric appliances to automobiles. Vintage cars, you'll often see parts for sale that came off of the cars that didn't make it to restoration, so that car restorers can, in fact, keep others running. And that's really the way restoration works, no matter what you're restoring, if you think about it. Anyway, I appreciate all of you watching, and for any of you who remember this story and did not give up, I wanted to finally bring a conclusion to it. And it's also a great lesson for, perfect is the enemy of good enough. And there's a time when it's time to say, okay, what can we do? What can I do with this machine? Because I have not been able to bring it back because it was literally the grease that killed it. Basically, that's a lesson, right? And it's helpful to know this as you go forward when you're trying to think about how to lubricate your sewing machine, whether it's this model or any model. Anyway, I have a couple of more machines to talk about, machines that may end up having the same fate as the Kenmore, but I wanted you to see the fruits of all this labor and effort. It was not for nothing that I attempted to restore that Kenmore. Did not get the grease out. The grease is not only thick, but very dried. It's been there a long time, apparently. And it was time to make a decision. And again, I'm looking forward to finding other Kenmores just like it. Many were sold. It's hard to believe because they were so expensive. But Sears often had, financing. They would let you make payments. And so this was how Sears and other stores like it built their empires, really. It was really the credit they extended to their customers. And so, again, there will be other Kenmores out there that these parts will help me save so that they can actually keep going and become the generational heirlooms that so many of the great vintage sewing machines are. Thanks for watching, everyone.